with what happens in that area or what happened in that area. But in the hearts of all who lived in that solitary house in the middle of the valley, there was a single hope: help from God. Now, it is called as a single hope because almost everyone in that area, every farmer in that area was devastated. But there was a single mind where a hope, a spark of hope was kindling. The single mind that thought that the only resort is now help from God. So here, Lencho is that solitary mind who has that slight bit of hope that everything is not gone still. And that this is what he says to his family. Don't be so upset even though this seems like a total loss. Remember, no one dies of hunger. That's what they say. No one dies of hunger. All through the night, Lencho thought only of his one hope, the help of God, whose eyes, as he had been instructed, see everything, even what is deep in one's conscience. Lencho was an ox of a man, working like an animal in the fields, but still he knew how to write. Now understand every one of these lines. Lencho had hope that God will help, because such was his upbringing, where he had been brought up ever since his childhood to believe in God and to have faith. It was this faith that had been imbibed in him, that even if man is unable to see through your good, God is witness to everything that happens, and God is fair. He will never be unfair to the one who believes in him, to the one who has faith in him. And it is with this upbringing, this very thought in his mind, this very strong faith in his mind, that Lencho still could hold himself up. And he wasn't as devastated as the other farmers or even his family was. Deep in his conscience, he knew that God would help. Now, Lencho was not a man who was completely dependent on fate. He was a hard-working man, which is evident from this line that Lencho was an ox of a man working like an animal in the fields. And then there's this contrasting statement which says, but still he knew how to write. Now, why is it so? Because the kind of setting and the kind of period that the story has been set in, it is quite evident that people who spent hours out in the farm, in the fields, this was obviously some remote area, a village kind of settlement, where it was either work or education. But obviously people would incline towards work, because come what may, sustenance comes first. And yet they say that Lencho knew how to write, which means he was a very hard-working man who also knew what the world could demand of him, and therefore possibly he had paid some attention at least to being literate. So he knew how to write. Now what he did was he used this trait to his favor, to his benefit, when, let's read what happens. The following Sunday at daybreak, he began to write a letter which he himself would carry to town and place in the mail. It was nothing less than a letter to God. Now understand that he is not a man of words alone. He is a determined man who couples his thoughts, his words with his actions. So just having hope is not sufficient. You also need to act in support of your hope. And this is an excellent example that Lencho has set here. Let's see what he writes in his letter. God, he wrote, if you don't help me, my family and I will go hungry this year. I need 100 pesos in order to sow my field again and to live until the crop comes because the hailstorm, ... And he continued to write the letter. Now understand the rationality and the naivety of this man. In any case, he was asking for help to God. So why should he really stop at only 100 pesos? This brings out a wonderful element of his personality, that he was a self-contained and content man, not greedy at all. To ask, he could have asked for so much more. But to him, what mattered was 100 pesos with which he would be able to purchase seeds, and then he would be able to sow his field again, and to sustain, of course, until the crop comes, because it takes time for the seeds to germinate and to reach the stage of harvesting. And therefore, a very well calculated, rational man with deep conviction, he asks for only as much as is needed, because he is not a person who would take disadvantage. He has complete faith in his own capacity to work hard, and his intentions are clear. Now let's see what happens in the lesson. He wrote to God on the envelope. Yes, you need to address the envelope to someone, right? Otherwise, how will the letter reach? So he wrote, just like we would address it as Mrs. Sharma or Mr. Claudius D'Souza. He wrote to God on the envelope, put the letter inside, and still troubled, went to town. Why that still troubled? Because he was unhappy with God, unhappy with the way the things had gone about. God could see, right? So why should he actually wait till this kind of a situation fell onto the farmers there? And therefore, still troubled with that complaint in his heart, he went to town. At the post office, he placed a stamp on the letter and dropped it into the mailbox. Now, one of the employees, who was a postman and also helped at the post office, went to his boss laughing heartily and showed him the letter to God. Now, laughing heartily, children, is because who would expect anyone to write a letter to God? Everybody knows God does not exist in any kind of physical form, nor is he settled in any kind of a permanent settlement or permanent place. So who could find this person and who could reach the letter out to this person or this entity which we call as God? God exists, definitely, but he's formless and he's not restricted to one place. So now, never in his career as a postman had he known that address. Obviously, it's beyond his capacity, beyond his control. So he has escalated it to the postmaster. And here is the description of the postmaster. Before I get to the description of the postmaster, try and take another round at hearing or listening to this audio which I have shared, and try and understand this part very well, along with the details as much as you can remember. We'll follow with the description of the postmaster and what actually happens to the letter.